All right, welcome back. And discussion we're going to be having this morning is massive. Some sort of state of the nation discussion around insecurity, which has been the biggest talking point. All the stuff been happening from last week and even up till yesterday, showing you how fluid it is. But the issues aren't new. The issues that have been there for several years. We're just seeing the fruits that have been born. With us this morning to join the discussion, you can always join on social media, Silverbird N24. That's our handle on Twitter, #NewsHub. We have big discussions this morning with Chris Mustafa Nwakobia Jr., who is a convener of Country First Movement. Great to have you join us, Chris Nwakobia Jr. Lester Wilcox joins us on virtual via Zoom. Lester Wilcox is a public affairs analyst. Lester Wilcox, great to have you join us also too. All right, excellent. So let's begin with
thanks for having
Chris
me.
Mustafa Nwakobia Jr. Chris Nwakobia was also a former presidential candidate, and it's great always when we bring you talk about many of these things here that you can share your insight into what is happening. I'm sure you've heard comments from every of the actors who've been speaking. I don't know. We've been trying to see if we can make sense of the entire thing and thread, whether it's the Minister of Defense who is saying, "I'm yourself," or it's with the governor of the Northern Governors Forum saying, "This is what I think should happen," and different narratives from different governors, whether to negotiate with the terrorists or not. And then you've had the governor of Ekiti, who is also the head of the Governors Forum, saying, "Look, at some point we'll need to work and find a way out of this whole thing by negotiating with them." The public on the other side is on a different template altogether.
It's a mismatch. It's a saddening and a sad trajectory in our national development. It's something that rends my heart. And consistently, I've told my very close friends that the tears never ceases to stop when you think about a nation that is blessed by God with amazing munificence and riches ineffable. When you think about a nation that has you and I, great characters, great minds. When you think about a nation that has young people who do not have barriers along the lines of ethnicity and religion. I have millions, I have hundreds of friends from the North who do not see me as Igbo, who do not see me as a Christian, but who sees me as a human being. And tragically, we live in a country where when you read or discuss Nigeria, you hear Fulanization, you hear banditry, you hear cattle rustling, you hear Boko Haram, and you see young boys and young girls who are killing themselves for one cause or the other, and causes that are very ignoble, permit my use of word. Now, and it saddens me even further when you listen to governors, those who should superintend the space and enhance security as a people, talk from ethnic cocoons, talk from religious angles, and then further exacerbate the crisis and conflict that we have in our country. It bothers me when our president appears quiet. It troubles me when governors are the ones who are saying, if the president wouldn't speak, we will do what we must do our way. And so what you have is a potpourri of absurdities. What is our direction in terms of advancement, or if you like, enhancing national security? We don't seem to have any. Now, that is why you have an armed forces, a military that goes to the press every so often to communicate matters of national security as though they were doing a press briefing on an entertainment show. You now find out that you don't even have the secrecy that should go with military protocol and dispatch operations. That is why the military claims a territory that was taken over by bandits who took that territory unannounced, and there is a major press briefing that you failed, and after a while you took back what you lost. It's a major press release. And so I think that the values and the general score has been lowered. But I think also that all hope is not lost. And that's why I have extreme faith in Nigeria. A country that has you and I, a country that has the young people out there, should be able to regenerate, reinvent, rediscover, rework, and rebuild itself like a phoenix. And that's why when I talk about a country that my late dad told me has the abilities not only to lead Africa, but to lead the third world to the table of global reckoning and advancement. And I say this advisedly, nailing it. You remember for about a year, I had a no-shave protest in this country. My beards were almost looking mosaic because I was talking about the need to negotiate, discuss with the Haramist because of our mothers and sisters in the Northeast. Some called it the kinetic and non-kinetic protocol. Some said it was the whip and the whip and the dialogue. But for me, even America has had to negotiate with the Taliban. For me, even Russia had had to discuss with Afghanistan. For me, what should count is what Norman Vincent Peale called the primacy of life. You know, he said once that we all belong to one planet. Don't ask of me for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. And then it was John Donne who said that death, we shouldn't proudly, but unfortunately, we shouldn't proudly celebrate death because death is a loser. But unfortunately, with human barbecues everywhere across our country, it does appear like death is a victor in Nigeria. And that's what we must directly as a people concertedly address. So as I talk to you and as I speak with Nigerians who are listening to us, the time has come for us to call leadership to account. The time has come for us to talk about that beloved country that we want to build. And that country, you know, unfortunately, permit me use this word, that the reason we have those conflagrations, the reason we have those problems everywhere is because of the absence of justice. You know, Holmes, a famous American criminologist, once said that the society prepares the crime, the criminal commits it. Yeah. And so we live in a country where there's no justice, there's no equity, there's no fairness, and some Nigerians think of themselves as superior to the others. And so what it does is build a conflict zone, exacerbate conflict and crisis. What it does is build protest and conflict. And then what it does is leave cannon fodders for the young and the unemployed to feast on. That is why we're where we are. And I hope the leadership will decide to promptly address these fundamental issues.
Chris, it's a beautiful opening remark you just gave us there. And I could tell that you've actually identified what the issues really are. And we're looking forward to preferring solutions right now on the program today as we attempt to look at the conversations that moved. We've moved away. Yes, this is where we are. Then we are looking at how do we deal with the issues as it stands at this moment. Here we have quite a number of our young kids, the Kagara kids, still held hostage by the bandits or the terrorists, whatever they have been called. That's where we are at the moment. So we're looking at how do we get the many Nigerians that have been held hostages across all insurgency. Could it be the Boko Haram? Is it the ISWAP? Is it the bandits? just name it. We know, is it the kidnappers are around the southwest and the southeast, everywhere. A lecturer was kidnapped in Port Harcourt just yesterday, and many more. But then we need to look at are we going to be employing a diplomatic approach to these issues, or do we look at a military approach to these issues? You hold your thought 1 second. We also do have Alistair Wilcox on the other side. Alistair, so good to have you join us on News Up this beautiful morning. I'm sure you've listened so carefully to Chris Mustafa's position on this matter. Give us an insight into how you feel and how you want to appraise the security situation in Nigeria quickly.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I want to say good morning to Professor Nwakobia. It's been a while we met on platforms like this. It's always nice to be with him whenever we address issues. Chris, good morning. I think for me, Chris has painted a good picture, nothing different from what every Nigerians are looking at in terms of how the situation is deteriorating by the day and how it seems we are all sitting ducks at the mercy of everyone. Like Chris said, it's not an all hope lost. I have a different perspective to it all. At some point in our national life, we begin to change our narrative. And most times I also blame the press. I will not be shy in doing that in terms of the reportage that incidences has given. We know that we since 2000, since the advent of democratic structure, precisely about 2001 or so, when the issue of OD started, when OD was leveled down on account of persons who want to hold the state hostage. We're all living witness to that incident. I think that was the birth of violent crime, militancy, terrorism in our body politics. The earliest time we had a resemblance of terrorism was in 1982, the Yusuf saga that tried to hijack a Nigerian plane to Niger Republic. So those things were quite alien. Even when the pant bomber happened in the US and it's a Nigerian citizens, we never thought Nigerians are capable of such acts. But back to the OD incidents, then later the Zakibiam, later the Plateau incidences that brought about the suspension of Joshua Dare then as governor, a state of emergency imposed, up to when we started Boko Haram 2009. I think the situation gets worse by the day, gets depleted by the day. And so we find ourselves now. And for me, what I'm talking about, the kind of reportage we give to it is we seem to be celebrating in through our either social media, either the conventional media, celebrating the enemy against the victors of the Ghana Nigerian security forces. I must appreciate the enormous work and responsibility that has been on the shoulder of our security forces. It's a sacrifice they have paid. I don't have the count of since 2009 when Boko Haram started in Maiduguri. In fact, let me even say since 2002 when full-blown militancy started in Rivers State and the Niger Delta, the amount of fatality, the security forces, talking about the police, talking about the army and other paramilitary. I can't imagine the amount of casualties they've suffered, and then when the full-blown out Boko Haram war, what has happened, as well as innocent citizens that has been at the helm of affair. But like I'm saying, we always exacerbate these situations. We either politicize it, we ethnicize it, or we arrogantly exaggerate and report and have a bias reporting about it. We don't celebrate the victories of the military. When a military, just like Chris said, it's taking a territory is not a big deal. For me, it's a big deal. Because when you put your life on the line to take back a territory that an enemy, a combatant enemy take, I think it should be celebrated so that it can motivate. It can motivate the society. It can ginger that, like, we are winning this war. But no, we don't have that. Sincerely, we don't have that. We are happy to celebrate victors of the insurgents. So the moment there is a bomb blast in Maiduguri or somewhere, the entire media space will carry it. I don't know if it is the act of journalism. The entire media space, they even exaggerate it. If maybe they overran a military barrack and killed 3 soldiers, you will hear that, oh, scores of soldiers were. The reportage will also embolden those, and then thinking that the Nigerian security apparatus is weak. But of course, it is far from the truth, because these men and women in uniform are doing a great job to keep us safe. There's a time that people in Abuja barely have the time to go out to their houses. In fact, they all go out in fear. People don't cluster at bus stops. It's happened in this country in Abuja. Abuja and other cities, when we had the bombing of the UN building and several targets that were attacked in Abuja. But of course, those part of our life is there was a time when Christmases and you must hear mass. There was a time it was happening in this country, 2011, 12, 13. Those were what we witnessed. But all that it seems to have, but we don't celebrate that, and that is the problem. It's either we are politicizing everything. Chris talking about leadership. I talk about followership. I think followership has a lot to play. Each time we think leadership is somebody that comes from the space. No, leadership thrives when there is a formidable followership. If all that followership do is to pull down, is the pull down syndrome. If that is what leadership followership does, then you have an ineffective, because no matter what the leader does to the followership, it's ineffective because it is the pull down. So for us to defeat the enemy and get a clear course mandate, then we must all work in sync. The followership must have a committed stake in the security and in the welfare of the state, not politics. Not sadly, everything has been politicized, ethnicized. Crime has been ethnicized, and I said, and I was saying it right from origin. When every violent crime is tagged to a particular tribe and a particular trade, I keep saying it, then you're emboldening the real criminals and giving them a fast getaway car. And what will happen? They will keep perpetrating it, knowing fully well that their attention is directed towards one particular angle, and so they can perpetrate it. So when we ethnicize crime today in the Southwest, every kidnap is traceable to a particular group. In the South, is the same. Maybe only in the creeks of Nigeria that they've not started ethnicizing kidnapping and violent crime because of the terrain. But when we were doing that, the press was helping, the civil societies were helping, the analysts were helping, and so what do you get? You get an emboldened criminal gang who can perpetrate crime knowing fully well that the society will not look their side, but will look elsewhere.
So you've had the opening too. So we have Lester Wilcox and Chris Nwakobia Jr. Look at the things. It's the beauty of a conversation such as this. You have varied opinions on how to see things, even if you are on the same page. Chris, it's great we all have some sort of science background in how things work out. Even though Lester and David too. If you had a mathematical equation, for example, and look at the different factors responsible for the things which have happened in the North especially, all of those factors will point towards poor socioeconomic indices over the years. So help us understand this, Chris. So the actors who are responsible, unfortunately, the military, not these ones, are responsible for some of the things that happened. Maybe their bosses who were generals before the 1999 have a role to play, but more importantly, the governors, the elected representatives of all of these states have a role to play, and I do understand Lester's frustration that it's being put on the military to deliver them, but it still doesn't take away the political actors from the problems being faced in the North.
Let me first say that I disagree largely with my brother Lester, and I disagree with vehemence on several of the points. First, if Alistair were to go in for a leadership test or an exam, and he goes on to say that the followership should be chiefly held responsible, he will have an F9. In leadership and governance, he will have an F9. Mitt Romney, I quote, said, "The leadership shows the way. That's why people contest for offices." all over the world, historicity has it that leaders take their countries out of a band. And those leaders are never in the majority. That's a mistake people make. They are ideologues who recruit people who believe in what. Nigeria is chiefly, as it is today, the product of bad leadership. From the military, from the First Republic, they made their mistakes, the military made it worse. And then we have a democracy that's like a laissez-faire, where you, or laissez-faire, where you all-comers, rampaging buccaneers, profligate, and primitive acquisitionists holding sway. People who budget across parties. That's where the error proceeds from. He said, let's not discuss discuss security with political partisanship. But that's what he chiefly did. Because he tried to compare Udi, Boko Haram, and what is happening today. But that's not what it is. It is more than that. If you noticed in my opening, I did carefully raise the issues and I located it, the failure of leadership, the failure of state. And that's what you just noted. There's poverty in the space. Our young boys and young girls are not educated and they don't have electricity or power to thrive on their own. So there is frustration in the land. Failure of leadership. You don't ask a young child who has no boot to pull himself with his bootstraps. That's what you do when you ask the followership. You saw the answers. What became of it? The followership tried to take initiative. You have seen several channels of protest by the Nigerian people. They get stifled, they get knocked down, they get harassed, they get harangued, they get terrorized and tyrannized by the state. So I think that my dear brother should try to remove the extricate issues of national security from partisanship. I believe that, do you know that I'm a victim, direct victim of the Nigerian security malaise? I lost my younger sister, blood sister, to kidnappers in Delta State. Are you aware that I'm a victim, direct victim, of the decrepit infrastructure you have in this country? I lost my younger sister, who had the first class in Enugu State University, 3 weeks after her graduation, on the roads to Abuja, bad roads. And so I feel the pain. I don't know whether some understand what I'm talking about. And this pain is indiscriminate of partisanship. This pain is indiscriminate of whether you support the PDP. Look closely, you see tears coming out of my eyes. This pain is indiscriminate of whether you support the APC. This pain is about the Nigerian estate. How can we make this country work? It's beyond partisanship. Don't look for who to lay the blames. If the bombs are not exploding in Abuja today, can you go to Kaduna with your hearts at peace from Abuja? If the bombs are not exploding in Abuja today, do you know the level, the number of kidnappings happening in Abuja? You did raise an issue, and that is where I would want to tell Nigerians that a lot can be done. There's hope. You know, and beyond, it is not partisan for me. Kogi State is a state in example for me. Kogi State is a state that borders 9 states in this country. 9 borders. The young man, who happens to be the youngest governor that Nigeria has today in Kogi, has been able to make Kogi State a state with 9 borders, for instance, the safest in the north. So, leadership at the center should ask Yaya Bello what he has done in Kogi. So, Alesta will now know that I'm not talking about politics or partisanship. What has he done? What is Yaya Bello doing in Kogi that will make a state with 9 borders the safest in the north, and then the second safest in Nigeria? That's a complex state. You know, because I think that fundamentally, a chat with him will reveal to you that what he has done is to engage the old and the young. What he has done is to engage with the security architecture that we have. Make young boys in the police, young boys in the army, in the what do you call it, civil defense.
Right.
And the State Security Service agree with him on the fact that they must protect, that he is the chief security officer and that they must protect the state. Remember you saw a few pictures a few weeks ago where the local vigilante in Kogi State was able to rescue policemen who were kidnapped.
Okay, either or, Chris.
No, please, let me bury this.
Yes.
Please, David.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally important that as we discuss Nigeria, we remove from discussing issues about security from partisan embers and put before us the primacy of lives. If you've been a victim, you will feel it. I do not want to continue to see young boys who otherwise should be in school being taken away like Kagara, being taken away. There's a K about these things now. What was the other one in Katsina? Kankara. You know, there's a pain in my soul because I was once a kid in a school, in a public school. And so this nation must rework the principles of its morality and stop politicking with lives of young people, young women, and address the fundamentals. I may not agree with profiling criminals, but I think that fundamentally, issues about justice, equity, and fairness, issues about reworking and overhauling the Nigerian enterprise and our security architecture, issues about perhaps state policing and fundamental rework of the nation state called Nigeria must be at the front burner if we must stifle this conflict.
We still have some time on this conversation. We also have a new respondent that just joined us, a new guest from Abuja. Maybe we'll bring a balance in to this conversation around followership or leadership tussle that we're having this morning. We have Nasiru Galadanchi. He's the National Coordinator, Citizens Action for Good Governance. So good to have you join us on the program, Nasiru.
Hello, Lagos. I need to respond to
Thank you very much.
Chris said, please.
If the engineers can help us with the audio here, we cannot hear Nasiru in the studios. If they can help us with that, Nasiru, I'm sure you can hear me. I haven't listened to both players now. You've listened to Wilkos on the other side did mention that is a function of bad followership that's probably has brought us to where we are to a large extent. And then Chris actually did try to bring clarity to that. That for him is about leadership that has brought us to where we are at the moment. Exactly what will be your balancing position on this? Leadership, followership, leadership. Exactly where would you stand?
Thank you for having me. Firstly, I would say it's a mixture of both. The mixture of bad leadership and the mixture of bad followership. In my faith, they said when the prayer goes bad, because mostly Muslims are worshiping congregational prayer, they said it's from the imam. That means from the leader. And it is believed that the leadership is a result of compound of followership. If you have a bad followership, that leader emerges from the congregation of the followers that we have in the society. So when you have a leader who perhaps doesn't rise up to responsibilities, doesn't stick to his promises, doesn't have honor, dignity, is a result of what he has been groomed and prepared to lead a country, or see has been happening and accepted over his growing or his grooming processes of becoming such leaders. For instance, today you would see a lot of young people are now into the Federal House of Representatives, into the Senate. Most of them have seen how bad it was from 99 before they became members of parliament. They see that there are issues of budget padding, issues of going to take constituency allowances and all sorts. So when they get into the house, you wouldn't expect them to do much of a difference because they would be seen to be consistent in the process that have been happening. So we need to see a refined system whereby the leadership will have to take the bulk of the responsibility to see that they restore confidence and patriotism in the heart of their followership, and also ensure that they they become a good representation of what their country needs to be. Nigeria has been in a crisis situation because we all think about ourselves, not about our country. Our country has suffered so much from negligence, from corruption, from bad leadership, from bad followership, from even compromising the dignity of your country as against your selfish agenda. Now, today we are facing serious security challenges. Why are we doing this? It's because people who have been trusted with public offices, people who have been given responsibilities, have compromised that trust for their own self-serving interest. Now you will see inflation of contracts, you will see how the war is being sabotaged to sustain fat military budget, to see how much compromises from within the security state government officials, so as to ensure that so much money is being given for to pay hostages, at the long run, compromising every effort to bring about peace. So for me, it remains a mixture of both. Who should we hold responsible more? It's the leadership, because you are brought into office, you swore an oath, you understood the responsibilities and the enormity of the challenges that you're confronted with. So we would not want to make it easy for you or to give you a shortcut to think that the entire country system is messed up and as such a product of that. But we expected that the political process that got you to emerge as a leader is a refining process that perhaps from your ward level, local government, state level, to your primary congresses and your general elections, the best one have been chosen. But then we have to ensure that the political and electoral processes are well
Mr. Galadanchi.
prepared so that
All right,
those
Mr.
who are
Galadanchi. Thank you very much. Great. At least now we know where you stand. Let's get to Lester Wilcox. A lot of troubling points, Mr. Wilcox, on what is happening in the country. You know, yesterday they had the president unveil the National Cybersecurity Strategy 2021, which is a revision from the 2014 document. And something he said about how things have gone, bad in the way they were dealing with security challenges in 2014. 2021 is a reflection of what we're currently facing. When you look at the things going on in the country, it's difficult not to point your fingers at the present crop of leadership in having been the ones watching while things went south. If they said that Boko Haram or ISWAP had been technically defeated at that point and was no longer holding territory, we have a monster which is as vicious and even maybe worse in the way the casualties have happened in the banditry and the herdsmen crisis going on presently. When people say that the government has been, at all the levels, have not been serious and have not been serious and have not applied urgency in dealing with the situation in the way it should be dealt with, we haven't seen people being fired, we haven't seen resignations, and again you've had people being abducted, you've had unbelievable things happen on a daily basis in this country. What are your thoughts, Lester?
Thank you. First and foremost, number one, I don't like countering or doing name calling to any colleague I have on the platform. So I respect Dr. Chris. Professor Chris is my friend and my brother. So I would not expect he come and belight my position by talking of an F9 or an F8 or whatever. When I made my opening remark, I didn't politicize the situation. I didn't even talk about leadership. I talked about the non-application of our security force, and I laid emphasis on that. I talked mainly about the security force. I draw analogies as to what the security agencies have done and the casualties they've suffered. So I wouldn't expect my brother to think he can rubbish my position, and that is not fair. And I have sworn not to argue with him or to despite his opinion, even on social media. I have kept to that faith because I understand his position, I understand his circumstances, and we know where we are going. So be that as it may, so I never educate leadership. Certainly, everything rise and fall with leadership. I only talked about, and I repeat, the aspect of followership that is key. No matter how laudable a leader's position is, a leader's ideology is, if the followership are not in sync, if the followership are polarized, if the followership have different agenda, there will be spanners in the work. That does not educate the leaders. Everywhere in the world, the leader shows the example. And as even as a family, no matter how bad your children comes up out, they still blame you, even though they will still say these children are bad. So you still need to do what you need to do. He mentioned Kogi, and which was the example I wanted to give. So Kogi is neighboring Benue. So how come you said the center should land? How come the people of Benue is not learning from what is happening in Kogi? Kogi didn't wait and start calling Abuja. We have tiers of government in this world, and each of these tiers, and that's the mistake we make. And when even as analysts, we allow the other tiers of government to run amok. We allow governors with fast security votes to run amok. And when anything happens, in order for us to satisfy our whims, our caprices, our DNA, I mean how to elicit our interest, we shift blames. Yes, everyone takes the blame. But I'm sure when there was Bado in Lagos State, Governor Sanwo-Olu didn't wait for Abuja, or didn't start shouting Abuja, or service chiefs. Kogi has not been shouting service chief or Abuja. What am I trying to say? Security is everybody's business. And so if you, as a chief security officer of a state, will not do what you need to do, rather you are playing politics, you don't have anything to offer to your people, you are diverting their attention, you are thinking that their problem is from elsewhere, then you are a failed leader. And then we analysts who owe the people the responsibility to bring them to account. That's the position. We have come to a point in this country where inaction and buck passing and shifting of blames and bad publicity, politicking, profiling has brought us to where we are today, and I will remain resolute on that position. No matter what the security agencies are doing, we don't even have enough. Ill-motivated, ill-equipped, yes, but at the same time, they are putting their. Is it good enough? No. Can it be better? Yes. But do we celebrate them in the resources they have? We don't. Rather, we celebrate the bad guys. One kidnapping, like somebody says, if people passes through Kaduna, of course, I have gone to Kaduna from Abuja several, countless times by road. Thousands and one car passes to Kaduna from Abuja to and fro every day. If there is one incident, which is unfortunate, but the press will use that, we celebrate that one incident. And so by so doing, put fears in the minds of everybody. I mean, a friend of mine from Canada was discussing with me a few days ago, and I told him I'm in Port Harcourt. He was like, "How did you get there? Did you fly?" I said, "I went by road." He said, "How? How did you go?" We were told nobody travels by Nigerian road. I said, "But I went by road." In December, I drove down to Port Harcourt. We have all been victims of bad road. I've been a victim. I've spent 24 hours on the road. I'm supposed to spend 6 hours. So,
yes.
So we all need to work together in sync.
Lester,
and then by the time we see
Lester, I want to believe that, yes, we have been able to come to a truce on this argument. We've all come to terms with the fact that indeed it is more of a leadership challenge as against a followership challenge, and Chris was trying to, he did apologize when you were speaking, but you probably did not hear because his microphone was muted. But we'll come back to that. It's about time we shift gears because the focus of our conversation today is we're looking at the place of diplomacy as against military might in dealing with the issue around insecurity in today's Nigeria. That is where we are at the moment. We'll take this quick. When we'll come back, we'll shift gears on this conversation. Stay with us.
The fight against COVID-19 is far from over. We are presently in the community transmission phase. Unfortunately, this is the most deadly part of its spread, and it's more prevalent in high-density areas. Don't become a statistic. Wash your hands frequently with soap and running water, or use a hand sanitizer, and remember to practice physical distancing at all times and avoid crowded places. But if you have no choice, you have the choice of wearing a face mask. Remember, it's not over till it's really over. This is a message from the Silverbird Group.
You can now stream Silverbird News 24 live on mobile app. All you need to do is to download Silverbird News 24 app from Google Play Store on your Android devices and App Store or on your Apple devices. Tap the live button at the bottom bar to watch us live 24/7. You can enjoy all our news programs, including Pidgin News and program. Silverbird News 24. The news never stops.
Welcome back. It's a discussion the entire country is mulling over. Better sooner rather than later we want this resolved, but it appears that could also be a pipe dream. If you don't have the ingredients to cook good soup, you probably just will boil forever and ever, hoping, that it happens when you know in reality you didn't put anything in there. Maybe that's the situation the entire North has found itself, or major parts of the country also too, which haven't invested for years, and now the chickens have come home to roost, like they would say, in how things are turning out. Lester Wilcox, Chris, us with great insights into how we can understand better or even be more confused about how these things work out. But diplomacy in helping resolve this whole thing, you've had many things from people sit down, we've had the colorful character and controversial character. Stuff. And I've crossed that line. To call them bandits, I think it's a travesty. More like terrorists in the way they've suddenly become. You can't cross that line, come back, and we still refer to you as bandit. But talk to us about this thing about diplomacy, because I'm a bit confused. Is it going to be a narco kind of discussion where they sit down and say, maintain this territory, or is it you do this for 1 month, or it's a lifetime truce we're hoping to achieve with the criminal gangs?
Well, first, let me, now that my mic is on, let me say that my apologies go to my brother, Lester, regarding how he perceived my comment. Maybe I shouldn't have used the word F9, but what I was trying to say is that my late father told me that you do not come to the house of a prostitute to ask her 18-year-old daughter to come for a virginity test. You do not go to the house of an armed robber to ask for a 17-year-old mass servant or a priest. And that, again, is to Galadanchi. The truth is that a parent is a leader at home. He should show the way. And across the world, the leadership normative is that, like he noted, you take an oath to serve me. If you don't serve me, I should hold you responsible. That's the simple thing. But back to the fundamental issue here. Should we negotiate with bandits, terrorists, villains, rustlers? The answer, mark my use of words, is who is the bandit? We must identify who they are, the different nomenclatures and different tendencies. If I were president, will I discuss with Boko Haram? The answer is yes. If I were president, will I discuss with those whose business have become take hostages and exchange them for money? The answer is no. And then you ask me what's different. Over the years, it's almost 13 years of the Boko Haram insurgency. Successive governments have lost the moral strength and nerve, and if you like, verve, to call Boko Haram what it is, a terrorist organization. The whole world has called it. But unfortunately in Nigeria, our government will brand IPOB that hasn't shown us on video rocket-propelled Guineas, launchers and SPMGs. You will brand them. You see, that's the inequities of the Nigerian estate that we must address. There are fundamental issues around these problems that we have. In the East, it's protest against the inequities and inequalities of the Nigerian state. And that's what you have in IPOB. In the North, it's a protest. I watched this. It's a protest against the poverty, the impunity, and the absence of leadership, quote and unquote. You have left the Amajiri kid unattended for decades. He's angry. You have left the Fulani boy in the 21st century to walk thousands of kilometers when in other climes they stay in ranches and take care of their cattle. You have left so many things unattended. So we now have this crisis and conflict on our hands. I haven't come here to blame one government. I'm holding successive and including chiefly this present watch responsible. Now what do we do? And David noted from the beginning that we're here to provide solutions. I disagree with Sheikh Gumi's call for a blanket amnesty. There's every difference between what happened in the Niger Delta and what is happening in the Northwest, particularly today. I tell you what, the Nigerian estate is skewed against a people who produce resources. Almost 90% of what you run Nigeria with comes from one space, and their space is left unattended. Their flora and fauna is destroyed, and they take up arms against the Nigerian state. All over the world, you will negotiate with them. The amnesty was validly called for by historicity and the exigencies of that moment, or Nigeria would have gone under. Now, have bandits, insurgents become so powerful that you must engage them and discuss with them and then give them amnesty? I totally disagree.
Okay, Chris.
If I need to nail it.
Yeah.
Please, because if you discuss with a set of bandits, give them amnesty, and perhaps, like Gumi said, settle them, another set of amnesties, it becomes a new business in town. So what we must do is address those things in the short run. Get back those schools that Jonathan built, the Amajiri schools, and get these boys into school.
Okay.
Get people to talk to them. Then what next do you do? Ensure that you collaborate with the World Health Organization, different NGOs, and at home and away to educate these young, because a man who's sizably educated will not go through the streets of and the roads of Kaduna, Katsina, Zamfara, kidnapping people and living in the forest. I think that fundamentally we must attempt a surgical solution rather than this hoopla about amnesty.
Let's give Nasri an opportunity to make his position. Yes, Nasri, haven't listened to Chris' position. He did highlight what the fundamental issues are, and then he has also proffered quite a few of the solutions. We're looking at way out of the current quagmire that the economy, the Nigerian state, seem to have found itself. How much of these negotiations would you want to buy into, and how do you think that we can go about negotiating with Boko Haram or the bandits, or just name them, the cattle rustlers, or maybe the herdsmen? How can we go about this negotiation initiative?
Thank you. For me, it's a very complex situations. Firstly, I don't believe in putting negotiation first on the table for what our leaders, a lot of our governors have been suggesting recently. We must be seen to truly defend the Nigerian state. We must be seen to give confidence to our people. We can't be kicking out every instance that people take arms against the state and the next thing they talk about is amnesty. First and foremost, anybody that takes arm against the state should be dealt with equal show of force. If you consider amnesty or diplomacy as a first solution, it means you're giving room. It has become the business in town, and you're giving room to more people taking state, kidnapping, killing, rampaging, raping, and next day they now tell us we need an easy access out of this whole thing. Give us amnesty and let's integrate back to the society. Somebody who has been used to collecting millions, hundreds and hundreds of millions, cashing out, and then killing people, you think they will be normal when they come back to the street? You think the Fulani who is trading his cattle for, let's say, 300, 400,000 would be comfortable when he's used to collecting ransom of 5 million per head, 10 million, 20 million per head? It can't be the same any longer. We have compromised our responsibilities as leaders. There is no way diplomacy would give us that long-lasting peace we want. It's a short-term solution we're looking at. Even though I'm a believer that military solution is not always the solution, but we might give a listening ear to understand what the likes of the Gumi, some of our legislators, and some of the governors in the affected areas are talking about. For instance, I know I'm from Katsina State. My governor considered the option of negotiating with the armed bandit or the terrorist. Zamfara did the same, and they came to a truce that they don't operate on his territory, and they also agreed that he's not going to attack them. So they found safe haven in Zamfara. They go to Sokoto and operate. They go to Katsina and operate. Like the Kakara boys that they kidnapped in Katsina, they took to Zamfara. But then because they had a truce, nobody will attack them in Zamfara. So it means it's a biased decision. Government must ensure that even when they negotiate in area of strength, in a position of strength and authority. Have you tried to exercise your military might first to see that you don't have the capacity? Yes, we knew the challenges the military have spoken about. They are overstretched, they are overwhelmed, they are demoralized in some circumstances, and as such, they might not have capacities. We just lost 7 gallant Air Force men in their way to neutralize some of these bandits in Niger State, which was unfortunate, and some of the minuses that we're having. Firstly, are these armed bandits more equipped than the military? Let's start telling ourselves the truth. We need to understand that there are certain things that we don't know as citizens or as civilians. If they feel these bandits are way stronger, way more equipped, more populated than our security forces, both the military, police, and the rest, then perhaps then they have no reason but to negotiate. Yes, I've heard a lot of defenses from those that are promoting the diplomacy and amnesty, that there are people with genuine grievances. The first grievances the bandit or the terrorist have is one, that there's been long injustices against them by the Hausas. You should understand that first, before the Nigerian state, that the Hausa judges, the Hausa traditional heads have taken over their cattle, they've taken their lands, they've placed sanctions on them and also charged them an unwholesome amount of money to give their own Hausa people. So they decide to fight against them. Now, how do you settle that issues? How do you separate the people with genuine grievances and those who are criminals and those who have been making a whole lot of money from this trade, And do you think the value chain will allow this thing to stop when there are those that are moving ammunitions from the Sahel regions down to Nigerians, and these people also giving them? There are a lot of people who are involved. I was listening to the negotiations between those that kidnapped the Kagara boys and the members of the state government. And he was telling them, preempting them, a decision that was made in secret by the governor and his team. The criminal was telling them over the phone that he knows what they are talking. It means they have an insider. The same thing happened that a local government chairman was talking to one of the Fulani bandits in Katsina State, and that this is what the amount that was released, and this was the amount that they were given. So it means government, if they feel they don't have capacity, they don't have any option but to sit down on the round table with them. But because the most primary thing is the secure of life and property of Nigerians and even foreigners in our territory, and ensure that we protect our territorial integrity. So we must build capacity. We must ensure that corruption is being nipped in the bud. We must ensure that capacities are made by our security men and women. We must be well equipped. We must be well trained. We must also ensure that the primary program of the community police.
All right, Naziga, we're going to come back to you for your closing remarks, but let's do the round beginning from Lagos here with Chris Mustafa Nwakobia Jr. And great insight. It just makes me think about some of the things in closing.
Maybe it should be a lista. I guess it should be a lista.
We decide.
Okay,
So
I'm sorry.
We will begin with you. Clandestine agreements and arrangement appears that is the way to go, but oftentimes, like he's pointed out also too, these things never end well. Also, what doesn't end well too is short-term approaches, thinking that they are long-term. We've got military operation running for almost 12, 13 years, and we still haven't seen the light of day. So we probably have to think more scientifically than agriculturally in how things. But let's get your final remarks.
Quickly, let me say that the South African Marines, mercenaries who came here, or the British mercenaries and American mercenaries who came to assist in the fight against insurgency in the Northeast, did say that in the line of their duty, they found out that before they even set out for an operation, their protocol had been compromised, which obviously accentuates what Galadanji has said, that you have insiders who profiteer from the barbecue of human lives that you have on our space. So what must we do? There's a role for the civil society in talking about the primacy of human lives. There's a role for the security agencies in understanding that we must protect our country and our citizens. And there's a role chiefly for government to show that it is committed to removing the reasons for which and by which the army of our young people find insurgency, banditry, and terror attractive. When Patrick Rumok was deported in 1988, I was just a 16 to be 17-year-old boy. He said, my crime was to have taught the young to think. We must begin to teach our young people to think. Leadership must begin to prop up faith in the green, white, green by ensuring that we have equity, social justice. We have a nation that truly believes that all her citizens are one and equal before the law.
Chris, it's a perfect place to land the conversation. Thank you so very much for that landing and thoughts of yours. Let's speak with Alester Wilkers. Time is fast running out. Alester Wilkers, yes, so much has been said. I haven't listened to all the speakers, including yourself. Yes, we're preferring solutions. One solution from you, though Chris had lighted quite lots of them. One solution from you to wrap up the show, the way out of this whole quagmire, negotiating with who? Well, it remains a big question.
David, they never give me enough time anyway. That you say you have the prerogative. Thank you very much. But sincerely speaking, I want to align with the speakers on the issue. Should I negotiate with Boko Haram? Yes, I will. Should I negotiate with IPOB? Yes, I will. Even though IPOB, why a lot of people are saying it's not it's a separate organization. Their intention is to divide Nigeria. So let's just be clear about that. Let's not pamper it. IPOB clearly want a separate country for the Southeasterners, and so it's a separate organization. So if they declare terrorists, I think it's right. So will I negotiate with them? Yes, every aspect, because they are not into kidnapping, they are not into criminality. They are just fighting the state, just like the Niger Delta militancy happened. According, advisedly fighting for their rights. So the negotiation is good. But will I negotiate with castle rustlers, bandits, for kidnappers? No. The answer is no. And you see, one of the problems we have today is the fact that we do not, we all politicize everything, like I keep saying. If Gumi is being called now, if Sheikh Gumi is being called now to answer questions by the state security agents as to how are you in contact with these persons, I'm sure the entire gamut, both political, both social, will now throw it back at the security agencies. Unfortunately, we have demonized our security services. Our DSS is no longer the DSS we used to know, because by the time they want to do their job, it is viewed on either religious, ethnic, political space. As for a matter of fact, at this point, with this kind of happening today, the Sheikh should be able to tell Nigerians how he knew these people, what he knew about them, and how he gets contact with them. That is one.
Yes, Wilkos, I'm afraid time is not our friend when we're having such great time on the show. But school of thought tells me that separatism is not terrorism. I just hope we could walk around that. I really hope we could walk around that. Let's have your final thoughts, Garadanchi, on this. We have to run in 30 seconds, Garadanchi. Where do we go from here?
Government must be decisive. Government must take a simultaneous and attacks on all these cells. Go to Birnungwari, Katari, Kagara, Sokoto, Zamfara, Shinkafi villages. Take a simultaneous attacks. When you bombarded these cells, when they are weak, you bring them as your children and caution them. Perhaps you would now avoid equal response coming up in future. You can't have Boko Haram, you can't have bandits, you can also have militants, Niger Delta militants resurging again. And you now tell them that all the solution is amnesty, taking the taxpayers' money, paying somebody who have killed, kidnapped. Have you paid compensations to families of those killed by these bandits? And you still want to carry 500 million and give them as a compensation for what? So I feel government must stand firm as the protector of this country to go out and attack these people. The way Gumi was able to trace these people, get their informations, get their locations, bombard them. Unfortunately, I understand that they are trying to minimize collateral damages. As such, they can't take all these attacks. But sometimes sacrifices are made for the futures. So let us help our country future to deal with all these terrorists that are emerging. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nazir Galadanchi, who's National Coordinator, Citizens for Good Action. I hope I got that right. But thank you very much for coming on the show. To all our resource persons, thank you very much for coming on the show too. Chris Nwakobia Jr., thank you also very much.
Mustafa.
Chris Mustafa Nwakobia Jr. This is the convener Country First Movement. Thank you.
Catalonia has not called, Spain has not called the Catalonian separatists terrorists. So do not call IPOB a terrorist organization.
All right. We'll leave it at that. We'll take a quick break and we come back. Let's talk about the meeting between the government and Labour over the price of fuel. Where do we go from there?